Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to today's webinar, How to Create a Bush Tucker Garden at Home. My name's Claire Dimsey and I'm the Health Promotion Officer at Enliven in Victoria, which is a health promotion charity based in Dandenong. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. Enliven Victoria acknowledges the people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land and waterways, where we learn and grow together. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. I'm calling in from Wurundjeri Country of the Kulin Nation, and I welcome you all to write in the chat the traditional owners of lands that you're calling in from today. For some background on Food from Home and who we are, Food from Home is an Enliven Victoria campaign which aims to promote the health and climate co-benefits of edible gardening. We create simple resources, events and opportunities to make growing food at home simple, fun, affordable and sustainable. Some of our campaign activities include a free seeds initiative, monthly growing guides, a community garden directory, and some seed libraries which are about to pop up in some of the gardens in the city of Acacia. We're also celebrating our 1-year campaign birthday today, and we're so proud of how our community of passionate gardeners has grown and allow us to keep expanding the campaign. For this webinar today, we'll be exploring some Indigenous edible plants, their cultural significance and how you can incorporate these plants into your garden and cooking. We're very lucky to be joined today by Colin Atkinson, an Indigenous Cultural Educator from Wolithiga Wares, who will be our presenter today. Colin has worked for many years in the bush tucker space, using his passion and knowledge to educate a whole range of people from school children to football players, cooks and teachers. I'd also like to acknowledge before we start that this is a safe space. We're all here to learn more about Indigenous culture, traditions and food. Please feel free to ask questions along the way and Colin will answer them as best as he can. If you put them in the chat, we've allocated some time for questions at the end. I'd also like to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, and while we'd love your cameras on, if you'd prefer to turn them off, that's totally fine as well. Thank you again for coming, and thanks to the City of Greater Dandenong for funding this event. I'll pass over to Colin now.
Okay, thank you, Claire, and thank you for your acknowledgement of country. Yeah, so we'll get straight into it. I'm going to share my screen and then I'll talk a little bit about myself, a little bit about my background as well. So let's see if this is going to work. Okay, is that coming up for everybody? I hope so, because then this is going to be a very short presentation. So, yep, so as Claire said, my name's Colin Atkinson and I'm a Wolithiga man from Echuca. So that's my traditional country, Echuca, Moama. My traditional lands encompass both sides of the river. So it's part of the Yorta Nation. We come under that banner there. So a little bit about myself. I started learning my culture when I was about 12 years old. And one thing that fascinated me was our foods or our native plants. And I've spent many years studying. I started out as a chef when I was 16 and was fortunate enough to end up working in a couple of Indigenous restaurants, one of them being Chinabi, which is used to be part of Fed Square. It's no longer there now. It's now closed down. But I learnt a lot there. And then I ended up getting a traineeship in land management with Hillsville Sanctuary. And that's when I furthered my knowledge again, because I had access to a lot of their databases and a lot of their information, but also I was able to learn from some Wurundjeri elders about their bush tucker. So yeah, so that's a little bit about myself. Let's get straight into it. So just want to do an acknowledgement. So I wish to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners on the land we are gathered on today, and also pay my respects to elders, both past and present, and also emerging. I also want to pay my respects to my people, the Wolithiga people, and my ancestors and elders, both past and present. So yeah, without our elders, I wouldn't be here to speak to you guys about bush tucker. It's one of the most fascinating aspects of Indigenous culture, in my opinion. But there's also over 100,000 years of culture that we can learn from. So what this presentation is going to cover is how to get your garden started, what you will need, where you can get what you need, how to include the kids into your assembly of your gardens, and what are the benefits of creating a native foods garden. So it's just going to be a nice, relaxing presentation. It's not going to be too over the top, too strenuous. You know, hopefully you don't start getting brain fade and you start tuning out. So that's what I want to avoid. So how to get your garden started. So you want to find out what kind of plants you actually want in your garden. It depends on what area of the state you're living in, whether it's a wet climate or a dry climate. Those are the things you want to sort of consider. If you're not too sure, just go to your local plant nurseries if you've got access to them. You know, they have a wealth of knowledge there, so don't be afraid to go and ask questions. So there are many different edible native plants out there, and most are easily accessible in Victoria and can be sourced through local nurseries. Plan a spot where you would like to have your garden and how big you would like it, or you can have a smaller garden put through, you know, play centre areas, anything like that. If you work at a school or at home, just a small plant box will do. If you're short on space, you can always start a little herb garden, a native herb garden if you like. So you can add a sitting area amongst your bush tucker garden if it is practical, affordable, and will be useful for future activities, you know, like tea parties, barbecues, that type of thing. If you already have an existing plant box, you can use them to start off a small garden. Of course, this will save you time, space, and money. And of course, I don't like spending money as well as the next person, but yeah, you know, you can buy a lot of plants that they're not going to break your budget. If you want to set a budget, there's a lot of tubers that you can buy that are under $5 that will start you off in your gardens. You can try to create a garden on your own, set a budget for it, like I just said, and you can always expand the garden later on. Alternatively, you can look for someone who has experience in the field and work with them to create your bush tucker garden. Yeah, so it's throughout my work with a lot of the schools and also Hawthorn Footy Club as well. Yeah, they wanted someone there to sort of help guide them down the right path of how they were going to do their gardens. So, but yeah, if I think my details have been passed around from your Facebook page, you can just contact me through that if you like. So where to get what you need. So of course, everyone knows Bunnings, Home Hardware, Mitre 10. I've chucked in 2 plant nurseries that I've used a lot of in the past when I was actually living down in Knoxfield, Ferntree Gully area. So one of them is Karanga Native Nursery in Mount Evelyn. They specifically specialise in Australian native plants. They've got the biggest range of native plants I've ever seen, and they've always got a good stock in as well. If they haven't got what you're looking for, they can always source it from somewhere else, or they'll actually start to grow it for you and contact you at a later date. Knox Environment Society in Ferntree Gully, they're a volunteer organisation, and they're very passionate about Australian native plants and bush tucker plants, only for the Knox City Council area. So they try to sort of stick with the local ecosystem, which is a good thing. Yeah, they can possibly, if you ask them nicely, they'll be able to order in some plants that you're looking for that are from outside of the Knox City Council area. Bunnings Warehouse is a given. Home Hardware, Mitre 10. They have a short range of bush tucker plants, but again, they can always order them in for you if you know what you're looking for. And another one is farmers markets and Sunday markets. There's usually a lot of plant sellers that'll actually go to markets on a Sunday or a Saturday, and they'll have a nice little diverse range. I used to do it myself when I was growing my own plants, but then fortunately I had to move up to Echuca for family reasons. So yeah, contact places like Bunnings, Home Hardware, Mitre 10 to see what might be available, but also pay a visit to a native plant nursery. It's worth it to start that chat, to start that dialogue with local horticulturalists, because if you build a little bit of a friendship and rapport with them, they'll look after you. So it's that's just a little bit of trade secret advice there. So what you'll need, so native plants that fit into your budget. Usually $500 will get you your plants, your soil, your plant box, your mulch. It's usually enough to cover it for a small garden. So good quality soil. If you're looking to get plant boxes, garden tools, trowels, shovels, watering cans. If you guys are avid gardeners, you've already got all that stuff anyway. But I mean, I like buying new tools. I actually spend too much money on tools, if you ask me, but anyway. So plant boxes, they won't break your bank. You can get some plant boxes that will cost you $20, and they're a nice, decent size. So yeah, Bunnings usually have a lot of them. Mitre 10, Home Hardware, even local hardware shops will have garden boxes that you can actually buy and put together yourself. So yeah, they won't break your bank. So how to include the kids? Basically, make it fun. So if you've got grandkids or kids of your own, when I do a school or a community organisation where there's children coming along, I make it as interactive as possible for them. And, I like to actually get them in there to help plant the plants, help spread the mulch, help spread the soil. So, yeah, just make it as interactive as possible. A benefit for doing this is they get to learn how to care for plants. They get to learn how to water plants in, but also they're learning about Indigenous culture and also what Indigenous people used to eat as well. So what are the benefits of having a native foods garden? So there are quite a few benefits to having a native foods garden. Native plants are more sustainable and better for our environment than foreign plants. That's a given. It helps attract, there's a typo there, but never mind. It attracts our native fauna and also provides a food source for them. So some of the plants that I'll be talking about later on, I'll actually tell you which ones are good animal attracting plants. So this can also help enhance the learning potential for both kids and adults alike. A great benefit is that you actually get to grow and use it in your cooking. And I will touch on that in the next PowerPoint presentation. And a lot of these foods are a great healthy substitute to the foods that you're used to. Like saltbush is a great substitute for normal salt, but I'll get into that a little bit later when we start talking about the plants. So a benefit I see is that it helps Indigenous people, both children and adults alike, feel a sense of belonging, acceptance and inclusiveness. And that's just coming from some of the feedback that I've gotten over the years of doing these types of workshops. And yeah, it's really good to see that a lot of schools, community groups and households are being more inclusive. So I've put in a couple of pictures and I'm just going to show you how easy it is. So this is a a garden that I did for a kinder about 4 years ago. I think it was in Bayswater. So as you can see, I've just started out with plain plant boxes. I've actually scraped out some of the tan bark because I actually want to get to the soil. So I've got my plants. So I've got a bit of a diverse range there. Nothing too strenuous. Some of them will grow quite large, but the aim of this garden that this kinder wanted was they wanted to actually harvest from this garden. So I was able to go a little bit bigger with the plants. So after I've gotten the kids to help put the soil in, I actually lay out the best way so I can actually get good space in between the plants. So, and sort of mix it up a little bit. So there's a couple of the big ones in the garden on the left and a couple of the big ones in the garden on the right, and just a lot of other little herbaceous type plants as well. So after they've been planted, I was getting the kids to water it in. And this garden for both of them, if you're well prepared, it'll take you an hour and a bit, not even. If you've got everything you need and you're well prepared, you can knock up a bush tucker garden at home in next to no time. But that was the finished product. So I've actually had feedback from this certain kinder, and the garden is still going well. They did have a problem with one of the possums actually coming down and eating some of the mountain pepper, which is the big straight one on the left. He nearly tore it right out of the ground. So, and I've got a funny story about a particular possum when we do the native plant presentation. So, and that's the end of that one. So, yeah, I hope it gives you a bit of information to help you kick off your native plant gardens. So, we having any questions, Claire, right now? No? You want me to kick on? All right. Fair enough. All right. Hang on. Let's get down to share the screen. There it is. Okay. Has that appeared up for everybody? Again, I hope so, because again, this is going to be a short presentation. All right. So we won't have to touch on the acknowledgement. I've already done one, but we'll get straight into it. So the aim of this presentation is to help you identify and learn about Australian native plants that my ancestors and other clan groups used to gather and use as part of their diet and survival. So the first one is good old saltbush. So I'm not going to bore you with the botanical names. That's one thing that confuses a lot of people that sort of don't know botanical names. But common name, grey saltbush or coastal saltbush. So if you've been along the beaches lately, now that we're out of lockdowns and stuff, you'll see this growing everywhere along the Victorian and New South Wales coast, South Australia, okay, and also Tasmania. The foliage is grey in colour and the flowers are purple or maroon. As the name suggests, it does have a salty flavour and it can be used as a seasoning for food or eaten on its own. When I used to go fishing down on the beach, I'd actually pick a bit of this and I'd actually eat it. And you get some weird looks from people walking their dogs on the beach. They just look at you like you're weird, but of course, I don't know any better. But a good thing about this plant is it's good at preventing soil erosion as its root system is widespread. And it also absorbs salt from the ground. So a lot of city councils are actually starting to use saltbush for garden beds to help prevent soil erosion. We've actually started using it up here in Echuca, and it's actually good to see that a lot of city councils are actually starting to use native plants to sort of expand the lifespans of their gardens, but also they want to actually make these garden beds last. So it's really good to see. So due to its natural salt flavour, it's a healthy alternative to the regular salt that we're used to. I actually use it a lot when I'm cooking at home. Stir fries, soups, sauces, roast chickens, steaks, you name it, you can use it on anything. So it does grow quite large, and it is shrubby. A lot of farmers will actually feed this to their lambs because the salt content in the saltbush actually goes in the meat and it makes it more tender. So you know, a lot of farmers are using it, and it's easy to get. You can buy it by the bag load. So they're the flowers. Nice bee attracting and bird attracting. You know, so I've actually got some of it growing in the garden up here at the moment, and yeah, the bees absolutely love it. So it's and the birds like to just pick at the flowers as well. Okay, ruby saltbush. This is one that's fairly widespread. It actually grows up here in Echuca natively as well, so that does come from the area. So ruby saltbush, or saltbush, a lot of people call it up here. It's a small shrub, grows up to 1 metre in diameter. I have seen them a little bit bigger when they've been grown in the right conditions. The leaves are succulent and cylindrical, grown to about 16 to 15 millimetres long. You know, they're not too big. Both leaves and the stems are covered in dense woolly hairs. So we would use the leaves and the berries. If I was to use the leaves, I would actually blanch them in hot water just to get rid of the hairs, because they do get stuck in the throat and tickle the throat. So fruits form as fleshy berries, changing from bright green, yellow to bright red and orange when they're ripe. So grows all over Australia, from the coastal regions to the riverine regions and semi-arid regions. It can be found in the tropical and subtropical regions of Australia as well. So it's fairly widespread. The red berries were soaked in water to make a sweet tea-like drink. Aboriginal people would also dry the fruits out for later and soaked in water and eaten. The leaves were also eaten as a snack-like food when we're out hunting and gathering. The reason we dry out the fruits is for the winter months. So if food wasn't as sustainable as the season before, we would actually dry a lot of our fruits out and store them for later use, just so that we wouldn't actually end up starving, basically. So it is quite pretty. Again, good bird attracting. The birds absolutely love to eat the berries. Every time I go walking along the river out here, I'll actually pick a bit of ruby saltbush and I'll actually chew on it. It is quite nice. So Muntree berries. Muntree berry, or emu apple, native cranberries, or munthari is a traditional name for it. So Muntrees, it's a low-growing plant found along the southern coast of Australia. So it is native to South Australia. But over time, it's actually been found in more and more places, usually by birds eating the berries and flying along, taking a poop, and the seed starts growing from where it landed. So the berries are produced. They're about 1 centimetre in diameter. They're not that big, about the size of a green pea. So they have a green or reddish tinge when they're mature, and they have a flavour of a spicy apple. Not a hot spice, more like a cinnamon type sort of spice, if you will. So crunchy in texture. Muntrees contain up to 4 times more antioxidants than blueberries. So, and they're just the size of a green pea. So that's why a lot of people actually try to get Muntree berries, because they're just considered like a superfood, basically. So it does have a natural wax within the skin, and it helps nourish your skin as well. So the foliage is green spade shaped, and the stems are like woody vines. So this food was a valuable food source for South Australian Aborigines, and it also has a lot of vitamins and minerals. Today, a lot of chefs will use it, and let's see, you'd be willing to pay over $100 a kilo for it, and the only reason why is because it's not commercially grown like a lot of our other foods are. That's one of the problems with bush tucker, is it's not commercially grown as much as our usual foods that we're used to. So that's what it looks like there. It does have a hard skin, like an apple. One way to actually get the skin off is to just soak them in water and just peel it off. So, and it has a nice creamy white flower. Again, bees will absolutely love the flowers. So another one that's kind of weird. Whenever I do a school, when they see the name come up, the kids just laugh. I don't know why, but probably because it doesn't look like a pig's face. But anyway, so another name for it is Carcala. That's a traditional name, and it's a coastal ground cover plant found in South Australia, but it's also along the Victorian and New South Wales coasts. So this is one of the more common pig faces you'll find. You can actually find an inland pig face, and we actually do have some of it growing up here in Echuca. But this is the more common one that a lot of people have found, and they actually like the flowers too. So the leaves are succulent and curved. They're rarely straight, and the flowers are light purple in colour. Sometimes they'll go a little bit dark purple as well. Just depends on how much sunlight they're getting. So Indigenous people traditionally ate the fruit, fresh or dried. So the leaves were also, the leaves are the fruit. So the leaves were also to be reported to be eaten with meat or fish. So they do go nice in salads, salsas, anything, even guacamole as well. I've used it in because it does taste like salty strawberries. It adds a nice little sweetness to it. And it also has antioxidant, antiplatelet, and anti-inflammatory properties. It has been linked to helping with arthritis sufferers. There is research that's still being done on the anti-inflammatory properties to help with muscle swelling and arthritis. So it is used in a few creams as well. A few of these native plants are used in creams. So there it is. Very pretty flower. A lot of people ask me why is it called pig face. I don't know. The answer I usually give them is the flower looks like a pig snout. But yeah, it's there's really no definitive answer of why it's called pig face. All right, one of my favourites, lemon myrtle. Most of you would have heard of this one. It's very, very popular now. So as the name suggests, it's got a heavy lemon aroma and taste. It's endemic to the subtropical forests in southeastern Queensland, but can be grown anywhere. I've actually got 2 grown in my garden here at the moment. And it can grow up to 20 metres tall and 5 to 6 metres wide. Don't let that put you off. If you want to grow it in your garden, grow it. You just have to keep it cut down, because anything that you cut, you can dry it out and you can use it. So you're not wasting anything. So you pick the leaves off, you can dry them out naturally, or you can dry them out in the oven on the low heat, and then you can chop them up and keep them in your spice rack. So Aboriginal people would use this with their meats, fish, or plant roots. So this is one of our medicines as well. So like pig face, lemon myrtle is a medicine. So it helps with coughs, colds, sinuses, inflammation, headaches, migraines, and it's great for your skin. So if I crushed up a little bit of the leaves and added a bit of water and rubbed my hands together, it'll go like soap. And you actually rub it over your skin. It's good for burns, sunburn, even eczema. So that's why we used to use it to heal some of our wounds because it's got antibacterial properties in it. So it's a good all-rounder. It is considered the queen of bush foods as well. And there's a good reason why, with all the medicinal properties and the food properties. So this one you can buy commercially through a few suppliers as well. Aniseed myrtle. So again, another myrticae family. Again, I'm not going to bore you with the botanical stuff. So aniseed myrtle, anise myrtle, or ringwood. So aniseed myrtle is an Australian rainforest tree with an aromatic leaf that has a licorice smell or aniseed smell. It has been used as a flavouring spice and a herbal tea ingredient. A lot of herbal teas actually have aniseed in it now. So the flowers are white and sweetly scented, and the fruit is dry and papery, and they're about 5 mil long. You don't eat the fruits. They don't taste good. A friend of mine decided to try them, and yeah, it's not viable. So it grows in the subtropical subtropical areas of New South Wales. I have seen it pop up outside of Dandelion and Mathawa. There's a couple of aniseed myrtle trees that are growing out there. I don't know if they're there anymore, but yeah, that's when I last seen one growing in New South Wales. So the aniseed myrtle tree has a very dense crown, and it grows up to 45 metres tall. Again, don't be put off by it. Down in Victoria, they will actually grow very slowly. Same with the lemon myrtle, because it's not in the subtropics or the tropical areas, it won't grow as quick. So you don't have to worry about it shooting up overnight. As long as you keep it cut down, you'll be fine. But again, don't throw the leaves out. You can use them. So the leaf is cultivated from plantations. Again, this one is starting to be commercially grown. So it's used as a bush food spice, but also distilled for its essential oil. So again, another medicine. It can help alleviate headaches, block sinuses, upset stomachs, diarrhea. It helps with that stuff as well. So, but Aboriginal people would flavour their food or brew this as a drink. So again, just another tea-like drink. But it is quite refreshing. So again, both with lemon myrtle and aniseed myrtle, good bird attracting and bee attracting plants as well. And also possums like to eat the leaves as well. Pesky possums. All right, native finger limes. A lot of people think these are very weird, and of course they are. But yeah, these are one of my favourites. Australian finger lime or native finger lime. The Australian finger lime plant, it's a thorny understory shrub. That's basically what it is. You have to be careful because the thorns, it depends which one you get because there's a few species. But just be careful of the thorns. They do have a habit of going under your fingernails if you're not careful. Another thing is if you do get a thorn under your fingernail and you pull it back, you pull your hand out straight away, you'll snap the thorn off and it'll be stuck in your finger. It's not good. So I could speak from experience. So you'll find it growing in the lowland subtropical rainforests and dry rainforests in the coastal border regions of Queensland and New South Wales. So the fruits are edible and they are under development as a potential commercial crop. I'll actually, at the end of the slide, I'll actually touch on a story real quickly as to some of the problems that happen with our bush food industry with commercial crops. So Aboriginal people would eat this either fresh or add it to other foods. So being a finger lime, being a microcitrus, it does have a high vitamin C content as well as other minerals. It has also been contributed into helping with weight loss. So a lot of dietitians will actually add finger lime to their smoothies, but more research is being done as to why it's really helping with weight loss. I just eat these raw. I'll split them open and scoop out the lime caviar, as it's called. If you end up getting one, don't be afraid of the price. A small one will set you back maybe $16, whereas if you want to buy an established one, you'll be paying about $85. Is it worth it? Yes, but you can always start off small as long as you speak to your horticulturalist at a native nursery, and you say you want just a small one, a small tuber, they'll be more than happy to accommodate you. So the finger lime has been recently popularised as a gourmet bush food. So the round juice vesicles has been likened to lime caviar, as I just stated before. So the fresh vesicles have the effect of a burst of effervescent tangy flavours. So it's really quite refreshing. And the fruit juice is acidic, similar to that of a lime. So they do come in different colours. The more red it is, the more sweet it is. You're still going to have an acidic flavour, but the sweeter it's going to be. The more green it is, the more acidic, the more citrusy you're going to find it. You can get some finger limes that are actually, you can actually get two species grafted together, so you get a bit of both. But yeah, don't be put off by the price. So the problem with a lot of our, especially finger limes, there's a farmer in South Australia that is actually one of the biggest growers of finger limes in the country, but he can only supply South Australia. And because he's the biggest supplier, he always ends up with a surplus of stock that he has to, or that he can't get rid of. He's actually, the only reason he can't export into other states is because essentially this is a fruit. And because of Australia's fruit fly laws, he's not allowed to export this interstate. The funny thing is, Australian fruit flies, or fruit flies in general, won't touch our native fruits. They won't touch them at all. And that's kind of the argument he's trying to sort of propose, is like, well, you know, only certain species of fruit are being targeted, which is, you know, apples, oranges, bananas, you know, you name it. So it's kind of a bit silly that there's no sort of exemption, because he loses nearly $500,000 a year out of his crop. So because he supplies all of the restaurants, he supplies all of his customers, and he just can't get rid of his surplus, so he has to throw it out. So it is a problem that a few farmers are trying to change, that actually do grow native foods. So another lime. So desert lime, or native kumquat, or desert lemon as it's commonly known. It's another thorny shrub or small tree. It's native to Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia. It can be found in woodlands, but also where there is heavy clay soils. So fruit is produced in the late spring and early summer. The fruit is yellow or green and is about 1 to 2 centimeters long, and resemble tiny lemons or limes, as you can see on the picture there. So desert lime has a very sour, tangy taste, makes a great substitute for lemons or limes. It has become a sought-after bush food for its strong citrus flavour and aroma. Very, very potent with the flavour and aroma. You can get olive oil that's actually infused with desert lime. I've actually had it before. It's quite nice. If you ever get the chance to get any sort of native food infused olive oil, my advice is you get it and try it with your cooking. So desert lime, we used to eat it whole or raw. They're very refreshing to eat, but there's a very bitter aftertaste after it. But we also used to, whenever I used to get some, I actually soak it in water and make like a cordial-like drink. It is quite nice, very refreshing. So they do grow quite big. If you don't be put off, like if you've got a space in your garden or where you can put one, go for it, experiment a little. Birds love to make nests in this tree as well. So again, just be careful of the thorns. Right, the next two slides are pretty lengthy, but I'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. So Davidson plum, there's three species in Australia. So they're commonly known as Davidson or Davidson's plum. The fruit kind of resembles a plum or the European plum, but they're not closely related at all. They're very, very different. So all species taste sour, and the fruit has a burgundy coloured flesh and is highly regarded as a gourmet bush food. Aboriginal people would eat this as a source of vitamins. So in the first three photos, that's a Jerseyana. So, or Davidson's plum or Mullumbimby plum. So it's just some of the common names. So it's a slender, small tree. I've actually got one growing in my garden at the moment. It's yet to fruit. I think it might be in the wrong spot, to be honest. So it grows 5 meters tall, native to lowland subtropical rainforests of New South Wales. Sadly, this is considered endangered in the wild, but it's widely grown and cultivated in plantations. So it's a pleasantly sour fruit. It's used in jams, wine, ice cream, and sauces. The only reason it's endangered in the wild is human impact and also livestock impact as well. But also logging and stuff like that is a big bit of a problem. So the top two photos, that's a Davidsonia johnsonii or smooth Davidson's plum. Again, it's a small tree with a spreading canopy and smooth leaves. It is native to New South Wales and southeast Queensland. Sadly, again, this species is also considered endangered in the wild. It's kind of its own fault though. So it's not widely cultivated because a result of infertile seeds. So that's why it's considered endangered in the wild, because a lot of the seeds, when it drops the fruit, they won't germinate, they won't start growing. So it is propagated vegetatively from a cutting or root division. This one's not commercially grown. They don't see a sort of use for it when there's two other species that are easily grown. So the last one down the bottom is Opurians or Ure, which is a traditional name for it, or Queensland Davidson's plum. So it's taller than the other two species, growing up to 12 meters high. It's a slender tree and has the larger fruit than the other two species. Weird thing is, the fruit is grown on clusters. So I've got a photo in the next slide that will show you. So small plantations in New South Wales and Queensland supply the demand, mainly from Jerseyana and Prurians. So johnsonii, the smooth Davidson plum sort of misses out. So that's what it looks like inside. They are quite refreshing, and that's what it looks like when it's growing on the trunk. So it grows in clusters, so it doesn't grow on stems or anything like that. So yeah, very, very weird, very unique. So okay, Burnong or yam daisy or native dandelion. You might have heard about this one. It has started to become very popular. So Burnong or yam daisy, as it is known, is a native root vegetable like a radish or a carrot. So it flowers during spring and summer, and it can be found in Victoria, Tasmania, New South Wales, South Australia, and WA. Queensland misses out. It's just a little bit too wet up there with the moist climate. It grows in grasslands, woodlands, open forests, and on the salt pans in WA. So Burnong tubers, they were a very staple food for Victorian Aboriginal people. So they were gathered by the basketful or coolamon full from meadows and woodlands, and were very plentiful before colonisation. I'll touch on the reason why they were plentiful. Yeah, so we used to bake them in the ground, or we used to eat them raw. So they have a bitter taste when eaten raw, especially in the winter, but they have a coconut like flavour and smell when cooked. They are really, really nice. They go good with kangaroo. go good with a bit of goanna too. But yeah, I could talk for hours on that stuff. So that's what it looks like. It does look like a usual dandelion. A lot of people sort of get confused. They think when they see dandelions growing in their gardens or on their lawns, they think they've got yam daisy, but they don't. It's a common misconception. But yeah, you can see down the bottom with the tubers on the right, it looks just like a radish, a carrot, or a parsnip. So yeah, so we used to roast them and eat them in the with other foods. So the reason why it was plentiful before colonisation is when colonisation first hit, a lot of our yam daisies were destroyed from human impact and livestock. So they don't do well when they've been trampled into the ground. So, but with Wurundjeri Land Council, they actually managed to, just going back quite a few years now, but they started growing Myrtle in their plant nurseries with their land management group. And they planted, at the time, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 Myrtles back on traditional country. And they've actually started to notice that it's actually starting to let the seed go and start to actually take to the soil and self-germinate and start growing naturally on country again. So it's starting to make a huge comeback, which is great to see. Now, this one is one of my all-time favourites. It's a shame that we're not doing this in person, because I'd choose 2 victims to actually come up and try it. And I'll tell you now, it is very, very hot, very hot. So mountain pepper, or Tasmanian mountain pepper, found in Tasmania, but it's also been found in Victoria. It can be found growing up in the Toolangi State Forest just past Hillsville. So if you don't mind leeches crawling up your legs, you can go out and harvest it yourself. Some applications of this food can be very broad. So you can use the leaves and the berries. Both are very hot when fresh, and has a different taste to the pepper that we use today. So it does have medicinal properties. It is one of our medicines. So we used to crush it up, and if we had a bit of a toothache or a bit of pain in the gums, we'd actually crush it up, make a paste, and we'd put it on the tooth that was hurting. So, and the chemical reaction actually numbs the tooth and the gum. So also we'd used to crush it up, make a paste, and we'd put it in cuts and sores to help prevent infection as well. It does hurt, but yeah, it does work as well. So they're the berries. If you want to have berries within 2 years, you need a male and a female plant. And most of the plant nurseries will actually have them labelled male and female. If you want to wait 5 years for berries to show, just buy a female plant and keep it in the ground for 5 years. It'll start to show berries on its own. Yeah, it's up to you which way you want to go. Yeah, so this one is actually commercially grown. You can actually buy it through a few native foods suppliers. Again, it goes hand in hand with the saltbush. Yeah, I use it on everything. Soups, fish, breads, cakes, goes good with chocolate. If you like a spicy, kind of like a chili chocolate, goes good in that as well. I like to use it for my kangaroo spaghetti, my kangaroo steaks, any sort of red meat goes nice with that. So, yeah, my stepfather absolutely loves this stuff. Can't get enough of it. He's obsessed with it. So this one is another Tasmanian pepper bush. Kind of not as well known, but yeah, it's very similar, but it's not commercially grown. So it's a shrub native to Tasmania and Australia. Grows up to 1 to 3 meters high, sometimes taller, with reddish stems. So separate male and female flowers are born on the one plant, so it will bear fruit or berries on its own. So Aboriginal people in Tasmania would use this with meats or fish. The flowers are very different than the Tasmanian mountain pepper. So these are more oval shaped. So in contrast to Tasmania lanceolata and stipitata, which is another Tasmanian pepper bush, the seeds of insipida, which is the Tasmanian pepper bush, they're not used for commercially grown uses or for culinary purposes. You can use them for peppery flavour, and they're still edible. So it's not a really well-known one, but it's a nice one to have because good bird attracting. The same with mountain pepper; they love the berries. They won't get enough of them. So that's what it looks like. I did have one growing a few years ago, but sadly, decided to just give up and die on me. So I think I had it in the wrong type of soil. Okay, river mint. So that's just its name. Common name is river mint. Small spreading herb that grows very well in cool, moist areas. It also grows well in wet soils. So anywhere where there's creeks, rivers, dams, mainly in Victoria, you'll find this growing. So river mint is a summer growing plant thriving along the riverbanks after flood, particularly in the Murray-Darling Basin waterways. It does grow up here. Goes well in whipped cream. Very nice with whipped cream and lemon myrtle chocolate cake as well. Or even chocolate mousse. Cakes, breads can be used with meats like roast lamb as well. You can make a mint jelly out of it if you like. But you could also brew it as a mint tea if you like after you've dried it out. So river mint is thin, soft serrated, and has pointed leaves that are found in pairs along the branches, tipped with a delicate mauve florets. So again, good bee attracting plant as well. So this is a very subtle Australian native herb with the taste and aroma of spearmint. Again, it's a medicine. So Indigenous people use this to cure various ailments, headaches, congestion, help with the digestive system. Bad breath as well. We used to chew it just to freshen our breath. Just like chewing gum, basically. It's got a few uses. So if you grow this in your gardens, if you decide to, you've got to make sure that you cut it back regularly, because if you leave it for 2 weeks, it'll start choking your plants because it'll just spread out. But again, anything that you cut, you can dry out and use it at home. So that's what it looks like there. So I've actually got this growing in my garden at the moment. I've actually got to start cutting it back because it's starting to take over the finger lime and block out the sun on it. So wattle seed. So wattle seeds are the edible seeds from any of the 120 species of Australian acacia that we have here. So they were traditionally used as a food source by Aboriginal people. They were either eaten green and cooked, or dried and milled into a flour to make a type of bush bread. It depends on which species, because there's over 120 out there. You have to make sure that it's the right one, whether it has to be cooked out or you can eat it raw or that type of thing. So acacia seed flour has recently gained popularity in Australia due to its high nutritional content, hardiness, availability, and low toxicity. So due to its low glycemic index, it's also often incorporated into diabetic foods. So it's often used or added to ice cream, granola, chocolate, breads, cakes, you name it. So it's even brewed as a coffee. as well. So it is quite nice. Yeah, I'm actually trying to get a cousin of mine who owns a coffee shop to actually start using this stuff within his own blend. So, but a lot of chefs will use it to enhance sauces and dairy desserts. So if you were to harvest this, my advice is that you cook the seeds first, because some species of acacia, or a lot of species of acacia, can be poisonous if you eat the seeds. So you have to cook it out first. So if we were to make, if I was to make a wattle seed flour, I'd actually roast the seeds first, and then I would actually crush them up either on my grinding stone or my mortar and pestle, whichever, and I would actually cook it out again just in case, because some of them, through some of my research, do have an arsenic-like poison inside of them. It's only very, very minute, but it will build up in your system if you're not, if you eat copious amounts of it and you don't cook it out properly. So you just got to know which one that you're getting, whether you can just, use it straight away. But my advice, cook the seeds out first. So bush tomato. Desert raisin, bush sultana. It's got a few names. So bush tomato is a small bush and has a thorny aspect to it. It is found in the central arid regions of Australia. So yeah, this plant likes a lot of heat. You can grow it down in Victoria. It'll just be slow growing, but it should peak in the summer. So it is a fast growing shrub that fruits prolifically the year after a fire or good rains. It can also grow back after being dormant as a rootstock for years after drought years. So it is a very hardy native plant. The fruit is rich in vitamin C and 1 to 3 centimeters in diameter and yellow in color when fully ripe, or dark red, whichever. If you eat it when it's green, it's going to make you sick, or potentially make you sick. So the fruit has a strong pungent taste of tamarillo and caramel, and it makes them popular for use in sauces and condiments. So you can get a bush tomato sauce. You can buy them in Coles and Woolies if you have a look. And they can be obtained either whole or ground, with the ground product sold as Kajera powder. That's just a native name that they use for it, because it is commercially grown in some places. So it's easily added to bread mixes, salads, sauces, cheese dishes, chutneys, stews, or mixed into butter. So similar to when you make garlic butter. So there's a wider range of uses. Does go nice in ham and cheese toasted sandwiches. Goes really nice in it. It's when it's dried out, it's got a bit of a. I reckon it depends on your sense of smell, but it's kind of a savoury, tomatoey smell, and there is a little bit of an after smell, kind of like sweet, and that's where the caramel sort of smell comes into play. So the Martu people, they would skewer the bush tomato and dry them out, so food was readily transportable. Again, similar to the salt bush berries, they would dry them out for later consumption. So there it is there. It's got nice purple flowers with a yellow stem in the middle, so yellow pollen stem. And again, bees do like this plant as well as birds. Warrigal greens. So warrigal greens, warrigal cabbage, New Zealand spinach, Botany Bay spinach, Cook's cabbage. It's got heaps of names. So warrigal greens. It's a leafy ground cover, like I just said, known as Botany Bay spinach or Cook's cabbage, New Zealand spinach. Surprisingly, this is also native to Argentina, Chile, Japan, and New Zealand. So how it got to Argentina and Chile, Japan, who knows? But yeah, it's been found grown over there as well. It's very easy to grow in gardens and is a great substitute for spinach. It's grown for its edible leaves and can be used as food. It has a similar flavour and texture and properties to spinach. and you cook it just like spinach. You blanch it. It does have little woolly hairs on the leaves. So if you ever get some, have a feel. It'll be very rough, like sandpaper. So Aboriginal people would boil or steam the leaves and have it with other foods like meats, fish, or even fruits, or eat it on its own. So like spinach, it contains medium to low levels of oxalates that need to be removed by blanching the leaves in hot water for a minute, then rinsing them with cool water before cooking. So it goes well with fish, quiche, scrambled eggs. What else? Goes good in salads, So it's very good to have in your garden because very few insects will actually bother trying to eat it. Even slugs and snails won't touch it. They won't touch it at all. So it's a good one to have if you're a fan of spinach. Give warrigal greens a go. Again, you got to be careful. It will take off if you don't cut it back regularly. So I actually had to remove all of mine because it was just taking over everything. And as you can see in the picture on the right, it just grows, just spreads like wildfire. So, but it is quite nice. It is very refreshing to eat. Okay, lily pilly. So rye berry, small leaved lily pilly or clove lily pilly. There's many different species of lily pilly. So small leaved lily pilly can be found in Victoria, New South Wales, and Queensland. My next door neighbour's actually got some growing, and they don't bother cutting it back. It actually just ends up dropping all the berries on the ground, and they actually end up stinking the backyard out for quite a while. So the fruit has been reported to be one of the first fruits consumed as a jam or cordials by the early colonists. It's got a bit of a rich history with Aboriginal people, but also early colonists of Australia. So the fruit has a refreshingly tart or spicy flavour that has a hint of cloves and cinnamon. Some other species can be more sweet, and some other species can be very, very bitter. It just depends on the species that you get. So fruit can vary in taste depending on selection. The fruit matures from December to February, and being a pear-shaped red or pink berry, they're quite lovely, lovely to look at. And again, birds like to eat the berries as well. So the berries are about 10 to 15 millimeters long, covering a single seed, which is 4 mil in diameter. So this was used for mainly eaten on its own as a snack while we were hunting and gathering, but also some were used to make like a fruit type paste and eaten as well. But again, it was eaten with other foods. Also, we used to roast the fruits a little bit as well, just sort of get a little bit of caramelization on the fruit a little bit and eat them that way. A lot of people use them in, they make sort of lily pilly jam. My advice is to, chuck a fair amount of sugar in some of them because, again, depends which species you get. If you start to make a jam out of it, it can be very, very bitter. And of course, you want your jam to be a little bit sweet. So, but it's up to which species you get, really. So they do look quite nice. The couple of lily pilly trees that are next door, they do look good in the spring as well. And that the berries are a dark pink on the one that's next door. So cherry ballart. So this one you'll find growing pretty much anywhere as well. It's also a native to up here. There's a few culturally significant uses for this plant as well, which I'll touch on at the end. So cherry ballart is a large shrub that looks like a cypress tree, and it grows between 3 to 8 meters high. So I have seen them a bit bigger in Tasmania. They actually grow about maybe 12 meters high. but that's because it's a very good climate down there for them. So it's a species endemic only to Australia. Plants are found in the sclerophyll forest, especially in shallow soils and on granite outcrops. You actually see cherry bella growing out of rocks, and you'll just wonder why. How's it growing out of it? They are very, very hardy trees. So they have an extensive habitat range from Queensland to Victoria, from the coast to the Great Dividing Range. It's also found in Tasmania and in more southern parts of South Australia. Plants are found in a number of isolated pockets of forests. So you'll see a couple of cherry bellarts growing, then you'll see a bit of empty space, and then you'll look and you'll see another 2 or 3 cherry bellarts growing in a cluster. That's just how they spread. So a weird feature of the cherry bellart is it has its seed on the outside. So you can see the green seed in the picture on the right there. So it's out. So the seed's on the outside on the tip of the fruit. The fruit varies in colour from violet or pink to a ripe red when it's ready to eat. So Aboriginal people would eat this as a springtime snack, as the fruit grows rather sparsely. It doesn't grow in clusters like the Davidson plum. It's maybe on a single strand of the leaf there'll be maybe 2 or 3 cherry bellart berries, and that's it. I do have a photo in the next slide that sort of highlights that. So it's not known if they use the hard oily seed for food or medicine. I haven't been able to find any sort of information on that. I do plan to go back to Tasmania and do further research with some of the traditional owners over there when I can. So, but it's most likely they would have in some form, yeah, hopefully I can actually find that information. So the wood of the cherry bellart tree was used for spear throwers and bull roarers, and the sap was used as a medicine for snake bites. Up here, we use it for those purposes, but we also use cherry bellart for our smoking ceremonies because it produces a lot of smoke, a nice healthy smoke, along with red gum leaves, and that's what we use for our smoking ceremonies up here, and also towards New South Wales, northern New South Wales, they'll use this in their smoking ceremonies as well. So that's one on the left that I found that was growing quite big, but of course birds love to eat the berries. But yeah, you can actually see on the bottom picture that it's not growing in big clusters like a Davidson plum. They're just sort of spread out along the stem. Again, we would dry these fruits out and refresh them later on by soaking them in water or keeping them for the winter. So we, of course, we didn't want to starve during the winter. So quandongs, weird name, but probably an even popular bush food right up there with lemon myrtle. So quandong, desert quandong, or native peach. So desert quandong, widely dispersed throughout central deserts and southern areas of Australia. We used to have it growing here in Echuca. My grandfather used to tell me stories of his mother, my great grandmother, used to actually go out with some of the other women, and they'd actually pick this and they'd make jams and pies and all that stuff out of it. But sadly, because of logging and the way how big Echuca's grown over the years, there's only maybe about 2 or 3 quandong trees left within the township, which is sad. But I have tried growing them at home. I've been having trouble, but I reckon I'll get there one day. So it's often referred to as native peach, and there's a good reason why. So the use of the fruit as an exotic flavouring is very broad, and it's one of our best known bush foods. So it grows as a tall shrub or small tree, 4 to 6 meters high, about 2 to 4 meters wide. Again, I have seen them bigger in the right conditions. So the rough bark is dark grey and the branches ascending in character. So the smaller plants formed by suckers from the roots are sometimes found surrounding larger plants. The slender to ovate leaves pointed at the tip and are pale yellow or green and leathery. So you can see they look like a leathery green leaf in the picture there. Fruit is produced after about 4 years, give or take, and is red or sometimes yellow. So a layer of flesh covers a brain-like nut with a hard shell that encases the seed. So the fruit is referred to as a drupe, and it ripens from green to a shiny red in the late spring or summer. So the skin of the fruit is a bit waxy, a little bit tough, and that's why there's a product that you can buy as well after the skin's been taken off. It's called Burnong leather. You can actually chew it. It is quite nice. So the fruit has been made commercially available in Australia and overseas. It is a well-known exotic food in foreign markets with sales greatly exceeding the supply that's available. So overseas, our bush foods are very, very popular, and some bush foods we can't meet the demand, and Quandong's a perfect example of that. So the flavour is tart and reminiscent of a peach, apricot, or rhubarb. The distinctive flavour is used as an additive, particularly as a uniquely Australian product. So again, to buy this overseas, you'll be paying a bit of a pretty penny. So this has usually been sourced from wild trees, sometimes by Aboriginal corporations, although the viability of commercial orchards is currently being trialled. So there's a few Aboriginal corporations up far north Queensland that are actually trying to grow it, and also New South Wales as well. So if they get a commercial crop going, yep, that'll be great because I'll be buying some. So the uses. So many Aboriginal peoples, they're known to have used the fruit, just as a snack, but they mainly gathered the nuts for, they make artifacts out of it, necklaces, that type of thing. The undigested nut can be easily gathered from emu droppings. So if you've read Bruce Pascoe's Dark Emu, he'll actually sort of touch on, or actually really pushes the point of, that we did have a system of farming. We did. And one of our ways of farming was we would gather the nuts from the emu droppings and we'd plant them in a specific area where we wanted them to grow, whether it's along a walking track or a cultural trail that we had, or a hunting trail. We'd want, if we wanted a little bit of a food source, we would plant them along those trails. But also where we'd also plant them where we think that we're going to get good enough growth to actually sustain the clan as well, within the clan boundaries, of course. So that's what it looks like inside the fruit. So it does look like a bit of a peach or an apricot, and of course the brain-like nut in the centre there. So they do grow quite big. Sadly, like I said, we haven't got a lot of them left in Echuca here. So kangaroo grass, wallaby grass. So this species has a particularly wide distribution in Australia, and it's found in all states and territories. Commonly grows in grasslands and open woodlands and floodplains. So kangaroo grass is a tufted perennial that can grow up to 1.5 metres tall and about half a metre to a metre across. Again, depends on the conditions and where it's growing. Its leaves are 10 to 50 centimetres long and about 2 to 5 mil wide, green to grey, and then drying out to an orange-brown in the summer. Causes a lot of problems for firefighters, so especially like myself. That's why we try to encourage people to actually, before they slash their properties, to actually get rid of kangaroo grass before it dries out. So the flowering period is from December to February. Now, Aboriginal women would steam the leaves and the stems of the kangaroo grass to produce fibres, so basket weaving, artefact weaving, making grass skirts, that type of thing. So make a bit of carry bags, fish nets, you name it. So after these were steamed and also soaked in sort of like a special resin, like tree sap, so like red gum sap up here, we'd actually melt that down and we'd put a bit of mud and clay in it and soak the leaves and the stems. It actually goes quite tough, so that's why we used to use them for our baskets and stuff. But the grass seeds were also collected to make flour and made into a damper like bread, and it was baked in the coals, and it's actually quite nice. So yeah, you can see on the picture of the left, so you can see the seeds inside some of the leaves there, ready to harvest. But again, we would have plains and fields of this, and we'd actually gather quite a lot of it, and we'd grind up the seeds, roast the seeds first, grind them up, and add a bit of water, and that was our flour. And we turned it into our breads and dampers and cakes. So yeah, quite yummy. If you ever get the chance to actually try some, actually traditional damper made out of kangaroo grass seeds, give it a go. I think this is the last slide. We'll see how we go. So old man weed, or common sneezeweed. Old man weed is a native herb. It grows along the Murray River up here, or generally anywhere where there's water, especially low-lying swamps. But it's most commonly found up this way and out in the Barmah Forest. So the plant was used by Indigenous Australians for its so medicinal properties. So it can be identified by its uniquely shaped leaf, as you can see in the picture there, and its pungent scent, which is a pine-like and minty sort of smell. So old man weed has a powerful reputation among Aboriginal people, and is one of the most valued medicines. This is strictly a medicine. So it's still used today and is believed to be a cure-all for a wide range of health problems, including arthritis, infections, and inflammation. Traditional methods of use most commonly involve binding the leaves of the plant directly to the forehead or other parts of the body, so that the body heat may release the plant's oils, which are then absorbed into the skin. So, for example, if someone had a fever, I would gather some of the plants. I'll put it, if I was using animal skin or paper bark, make like a headband, and I'd actually bind it to the person's head to try to draw out that fever, and just to try to break it, basically. Also good at binding wounds as well. It may also be taken orally, sometimes mixing it with emu or animal fat, or boiling and soaking it in water to create a tea-like drink. If you're going to do that, be prepared, because it absolutely stinks. It'll stink your house out, okay? So the resulting black liquid was used to treat numerous health problems, including chest congestion, coughs, colds, skin disorders. In cases of oral ingestion, traditional medicinal authorities have cautioned you don't use too much of it, because it's toxic if taken in large doses. So that's what it looks like. It's sadly given, actually I actually haven't been out to check after the heavy rain we've had up here, but after rain, it'll absolutely flourish. So I reckon this might be the last slide. Yeah, I was right. Yes, spot on. So that's the end of the presentation, guys. I'll stop sharing the screen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Colin. That was amazing. That's me
done. So can I go home now, even though I am at home?
Unfortunately, I need you 5 more minutes. We've got lots of questions that have come through.
Yeah.
The first one we've got is, can the coastal plants like saltbush and pigface be grown easily in soil and inland?
Yep. Yep, quite easily. Being that they're a coastal plant, they don't usually require a lot of watering. But yeah, they do grow nicely together. With my garden at the back, it's a pity I can't just take the camera out there and show you. But I used to have pigface and saltbush growing closely together. You'll find that if you go down to the beaches, you'll find that saltbush will be growing and you'll see pigface growing underneath it, and it'll be flourishing. So they can grow well together, yeah.
And we've got, what is the best soil type for growing natives?
Oh, it's a good question, because some plants, like, you can use any kind of soil, but you've just got to be prepared that some plants that like clay soils will grow a bit slower than ones that like non-clay soils. So that's where you sort of got to pick and choose what might be right for you. But yeah, with my lemon myrtles, for example, I've had them growing for over 4 years, and they've only just gotten past the height of the fence. But usually, if it was in a subtropical area, I'd have double the growth. So it's really, they can grow in any type of soil. Some of the gardens that I've used, it's just been plain potting mix, but others it's usually been I think it was called mountain soil. Was usually a good one. Yeah, just my advice is experiment to see if you're getting good growth with any different types of soil. But yeah, just be prepared that the growth might be a bit slower than usual.
Yeah. And we've got, would any of these native plants grow well in pots?
Yeah, a couple of them actually. Well, they all start out in pots if you go to a plant nursery. But so if you don't want to sort of overcrowd your garden, more your herbaceous type plants, Muntree berry grows well in a pot. Old man weed will grow well in a pot. What else? Let's see. You can get some species of saltbush that are dwarf saltbushes, which you can just keep in a small pot as well. River mint will grow well. Yeah, it's mainly the smaller ground covers you'll get away with growing in a pot. So I do have a friend that's actually starting to grow a lemon myrtle in a massive pot, and he reckons he's going to plant that when it grows big enough in the garden. And I keep telling him, you might as well just keep it in the pot, because it's a massive, massive pot. So, but yeah, you can keep some of the bigger ones in pots as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we'll leave it there, and we can get to some of the other questions and send through some answers via email.
Yep,
but
absolutely.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your night. Now you've had a very busy day today fighting bushfires.
Yeah. So yeah, tonight nearly didn't happen, guys. I was out fighting a grass and scrub fire well before the session, and I was managed to actually get here. So yay. It's been a long day.
And we really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Thank you. Have a lovely night, everyone.